Welcome back to a new episode of Wheels of History. Before diving into today's story, we invite you to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this one. For you, it's just a small gesture, but for us, it's crucial for continuing to share the stories of man that have shaped history. Today we'll uncover the story of a man capable of creating a company capable of creating models that have thrilled so many motorcyclists and written important pages in the history of motorcycling. Today we talk about Giuseppe Gilera. The motorcycle industry is perhaps one of the richest in self-made men, vehicle manufacturers who built their success from scratch. The reasons can be traced, especially in the pioneering era, to the ease of transitioning from producing a few units almost for personal use to an initial artisanal phase, the priority given to a set of technical knowledge, the promotional boost from sporting performances achieved by the innovative product, and above all, the presence of an enthusiasm that fueled an unmatched passion, unparalleled in other industrial sectors. The transition from craftsmanship to industry in a later phase proved more difficult. At that stage, passion alone was no longer sufficient. When the product had to break out of a local market to reach a broader distribution level, and when organizational and financial issues overshadowed technical ones. This is evidenced by the fact that even in Italy, out of the hundreds of enthusiasts who began producing motorcycles of their own design, only a handful managed to reach the top. Giuseppe Gilera was one of the first to successfully overcome these challenges, and to give the industry bearing his name, despite being run within the framework of a closely knit family business, the recognition we all know, first on a national level and later internationally. Giuseppe Gilera, as he was originally named before changing his surname to the brand name of his motorcycles, was born in Zelo Buon Persico, near Milan, on December 21, 1887, but grew up in Milan. From a young age he was captivated by the signs of the great industrial revolution unfolding around him, particularly by mechanics. He was fascinated by large locomotives, which he would rush to admire at the station as soon as he was free from school, as well as by small engines. With his first savings accumulated from doing various jobs in his spare time, he bought a small Fafnir engine he had long admired in a shop window near his home. He started it up in the evening on the kitchen table, but the stunt was short-lived as it disturbed the peace of the building. His passion soon led him to work at Bianchi, and then, in 1904, in Geneva, at Moto Rev. In 1906 he returned to Milan to work in the Bucher workshop, where he quickly distinguished himself for his skill. However, he did not neglect his other passions, such as playing the violin, which he would continue to perform excellently in the future, and attending evening drawing classes at Brera, foreshadowing his later love for great painting. But Giuseppe Gilera's primary passion remains motorcycles, and on weekends he participates in races with motorcycles he prepares himself. Among his achievements, he wins 3 editions of the Como Brunate Hill Climb in 1908, 1909, and 1910. In 1909, while still employed at Bucher, he builds the first motorcycle bearing his name, a 225 GP machine with a displacement of 317 cc. In 1910, he opens his first workshop where he produces various types of engines, including some narrow V-twins and longitudinal opposed twins, similar to the Douglas design. In 1911, a Gilera motorcycle achieves its first victory with a different rider, Mario Sassi, winning the Giro di Lombardia. In 1912, Giuseppe Gilera himself secures a class victory in the Circuito di Cremona, a circuit regarded as a temple of speed in that era. After moving his workshop to larger premises still on Corso Nauertuaio Marzo, the first major relocation happens in 1916 to Arcor, specifically to Borgo Milano on the provincial road to Lecco. Unfortunately, during a nighttime return to Arcor, Gilera is involved in a serious accident. While overtaking an agricultural cart in the dark, he fails to see a large wooden log protruding from the cart. The collision causes a severe lung injury requiring an extended recovery period in the Prasomaso Sanatorium. These were challenging times. In addition to his health struggles, he faced the issue of numerous motorcycles ordered but not paid for by clients who had been called up for military service. However, this difficulty too was overcome. After the war, business resumed vigorously. He was joined in his work by his brother Luigi and his wife's brother, Rosalino Grana, who were later joined by 2 other Grana brothers, Angelo and Valentino. Pierino Bernasconi, another of his wife's brothers-in-law, eventually took charge of the commercial side of the business. The success of the 500cc side-valve single-cylinder engines which remained a hallmark of Gilera production for years, necessitated the construction of a new factory. This facility was built in Arcor on Via Cesare Battisti. The new factory, inaugurated in 1923, allowed for an expansion of the range. Initially, the displacement was broadened to include 350cc models, then 175cc, which was later increased to 220cc, and finally to 250cc. Giuseppe Gilera was a staunch advocate of side valve engines, and even in racing, he initially used this type of valve configuration to demonstrate its effectiveness. This did not prevent the development, in the 1920s, of overhead valve prototypes with single overhead camshafts specifically for racing, although these were isolated cases. The first major international success, the winning of the trophy at the 6 Days of Grenoble in 1930, a victory repeated the following year in Murano, was achieved with the robust side valve model. The side valve configuration also equipped the motorcycles that put up a fierce fight at the 1932 6 Days in Garmisch, narrowly missing victory in the trophy competition against the more powerful BMWs, which prevailed only in the final speed test. However, times were changing, and Giuseppe Gilera was quick to adapt to overhead valves. The first step was the introduction of the 4 bolts model, which, in a rare 3-valve version, achieved second place in the 1933 Milan-Naples race with Ettore Villa behind a Grand Prix Bianchi. This was followed by the more sporty 8 bolts, a motorcycle that, alongside Moto Guzzi's Condor, helped train many young riders who would later distinguish themselves after the war. What Gilera now lacked was a prestigious Grand Prix motorcycle, one capable of competing with Moto Guzzi and Bianchi in the major speed competitions. In 1935, the supercharged 4-cylinder Rondine appeared on the racing scene. It was designed by Roman engineer Carlo Giannini for the Compagnia Nazionale Aeronautica in collaboration with Piero Taruffi, who was also the first rider to race it. Despite reliability issues that limited its success, the Rondine clearly demonstrated its immense potential. At the end of the season, economic difficulties forced the CNA to shut down. When Piero Taruffi approached Giuseppe Gilera about purchasing the bikes and blueprints, Gilera seized the opportunity. Unlike others, he had no hesitation in adopting a motorcycle not designed in Arcor, and immediately began working to ensure the Rondine's reliability. This decision led to significant triumphs. The 1937 Gran Premio delle Nazioni at Monza, won by Giordano Aldraghetti, the absolute world speed record set by Piero Taruffi, the 1938 Milano-Napoli victory, again with Aldraghetti, and the win in the Circuito del Lario, the same year, with Dorino Serafini. These achievements culminated in the 1939 European Championship, won by Serafini against the powerful BMWs. The name Gilera, previously recognized internationally only for its 6 days victories, now shown among the most prestigious Grand Prix machines. To extend his efforts to the 250cc class, in 1939, Giuseppe Gilera turned to Roman engineer Piero Ramor. Ramor had collaborated with Giannini on the first 4-cylinder GRB in 1923 and the Opera project in 1926-28. He was tasked with designing an air-cooled supercharged 4-cylinder engine. However, the outbreak of war and the post-war ban on supercharged engines in racing prevented this motorcycle from ever competing. Nonetheless, its architecture became the foundation for the future 500cc bike introduced in 1948. When the war ended, Gilera was ready to resume operations with the 500 Saturno, designed in 1939 by Giuseppe Salmaghi, along with a similar 250cc version, the Nettuno. However, the market's strong demand did not align with the public's limited purchasing power. Recognizing this issue, Giuseppe Gilera remained committed to 4-stroke engines, deciding that even his small displacement motorcycles would feature this configuration. Initially, the engine in the first prototype was side valve, but it was soon upgraded to an overhead valve design. The production of the 125cc model led to a significant increase in output at the Arcor plant. This growth relegated the Saturno and Nettuno to more marginal roles, as the new smaller displacement model became the centerpiece of Gilera's offerings. Meanwhile, in the realm of racing, the debut of the new 4-cylinder motorcycle marked the beginning of a rift between Giuseppe Gilera and Piero Ramor. While the bike was beautifully designed, certain innovative elements, such as the torsion bar suspension, caused issues. The engine unit, featuring a single block for the crankcase, cylinders, and heads, made casting extremely challenging, leading to high rejection rates. Flaws often became apparent only in the later stages of machining, wasting significant time and resources. Similarly, the intricate one-piece crankshaft was problematic. Giuseppe Gilera demanded changes to address these issues, but Remor, a brilliant yet uncompromising engineer, refused any modifications. This led to the breakdown of their relationship by the end of 1949, with Remor moving to MV Agusta. The official explanation for the split cited a disagreement over royalties for the production of the 125cc model. However, the true cause was the clash between Remor's rigidity and Giuseppe Gilera's pragmatism, where practical results outweighed theoretical ideals. To continue on the path to success, Giuseppe Gilera entrusted the realization of his ideas to a young talent, Franco Passoni, who had joined Gilera in 1940 after completing his industrial studies. Passoni had already been working alongside Remor, and under his guidance, the revised motorcycle won the 1950 World Championship with Massetti. These were the glory years of the four-cylinder bike, with victories first by Massetti and Milani, and later by British riders Duke, Armstrong, and Dale. The successes continued through 1954 and 1955, prompting Gilera to expand its range and target other categories beyond the 500cc. Encouraged by his son Ferruccio, Gilera introduced the 125cc twin-cylinder, which initially succeeded with Ferry, as well as a 150cc version of the four-cylinder, and the development of a new 250cc four-cylinder. However, 1956 brought a dramatic shift. The racing team was sidelined due to a suspension imposed by the FIM on riders who had supported a privateer protest at the Dutch Grand Prix the previous year. More devastatingly, Ferruccio Gilera tragically passed away from viral hepatitis in Argentina while visiting Gilera's production facility there. For Giuseppe Gilera, this loss was not only a profound personal tragedy, but also the end of his dream of family continuity in his work. Despite this, he found the strength to carry on, and in 1957 Gilera returned to major victories. However, by the end of that year, Gilera, along with Moto Guzzi and Mondial, agreed to withdraw from racing. The official rationale cited the dangerous nature of the competitions, but the true reasons were different. For Giuseppe Gilera, the loss of his son and the escalating costs of racing, which could no longer be justified by passion alone or supported by the company's revenue, were decisive factors. Over time, Gilera's production began to decline, affected by changing economic conditions and market difficulties, which even impacted larger companies like Moto Guzzi. Without the founder's enthusiasm and resources, Gilera revealed structural weaknesses that made it unable to sustain itself independently. The lack of careful production planning, a focus on mechanization driven more by Giuseppe Gilera's passion for advanced machine tools than by actual production needs, and an excessive tendency toward vertical integration emerged as the primary limitations affecting the company's future. In 1969, Gilera was sold to the Piaggio Group after Giuseppe Gilera personally paid off all debts, even using his private assets. 2 years later, in 1971, Giuseppe Gilera passed away in Arcor, leaving behind a legacy marked by both remarkable achievements and poignant challenges.